Hello, good morning, Selena. So great to see you. Been a while. You're looking great, and Keenan as well. Looking very good. And we've got a few countries here. So Selena and Keenan, I know you're. Are you in Oz? Are you still in Oz? Good morning. Great to see you. And
Indeed.
Mina, of course, you're. Are you dialing in from New Zealand today? Good.
Hello, hello.
So good to have you here. And
Hey, good
Maria,
to see
Maria,
you.
it's great to see your name pop up, Maria. Now, where in the world are you? I know last time we called up, I don't know if we were in Sweden or Switzerland. Can't remember. So it's been a while. Oh, you're in Spain. Of course, you're Spain. I remember now. There you go. You're in Europe. Must be getting pretty late there for you. So thank you for staying up for this. And I'm really looking forward to today's session. Selena and Keenan, it may be something of a refresher for you because I think we would have covered off some very similar content in the in the program that we worked together in before. So some of this may be a good refresher for you. That's been a while though, because that's Selena. I don't know how long ago was that. That would have been probably good 6, 7, maybe longer. So longer, yeah, longer as well. And feel free to unmute. I mean, we have a intimate group here today, so I'm happy for us to do questions and interact. I think it's great. And Samir, great to see you in person. I know you've been very kind to me and helped me with my YouTube stuff. So good to have you here and be able to add something back to you. So Samir is really great. If anyone needs any YouTube stuff, he's done some great YouTube stuff for me. So if you're on the lookout for anyone like that, then I'd be happy to recommend him. Now I'm just gonna jump in and hit play on these slides. And as I say, it's an intimate group, so feel free to unmute, shout out questions. The more you engage in this, the better. The more you'll take away from it. You should be able to see now on the screen, mastering sales psychology, proven laws to skyrocket your leads and conversion. Just give me a thumbs up if you got that. Okay, wonderful. Now, I think I pretty much know everyone on this call, but these days I am Australia's leading profit maximization expert, and I spend my time focusing on helping businesses to, just to make more profit and get more cash in their life so they can have more time to the things that they want to do. And this topic today really leans into that because if we don't have enough leads, then we can't make that profit. We can't really serve people. And of course, if we don't know how to convert people, then that's really not going to help with the profitability as well. Now, what I'd love to know from each of you is so I can change the content as we go through this and share what's more relevant. I'd love to know where you're at in this 5 steps to freedom journey. So we have businesses that start off, they're in creation and they're still trying to work out, who my target market is, what's the problem that I'm solving. Maybe once you get that sorted, it can become a little bit chaotic. We're still trying to, get systems and processes in place. So cash flow may not be where we want it to be. Once we come through the other side of that, we get an element of control in the business. We have some systems and processes. We have some team members that do what we need to do. Then we get to level 4. Level 4 is where we're having prosperity. The business is delivering us the revenue and the profit that we need. And we're now focused on how do we really systemize this and scale these things so that we can actually maximize the results. And then number 5 is we get to this place where we can actually have freedom. We can be sat on the beach sipping margaritas and the business still grows happily without us. So I'd love to hear from you in the chat box. Give me your best estimate where you think you are right now. Are you a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, or a 5? Oh, and David, welcome.
How are you?
Great to have you here again, David. David, you
Thank
may have
you.
done this quick assessment first. We're just trying to get a feel for where we're at in the business. 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, and if you could just type that in the chat box. So okay, cool. So we have a mix of 1s, 2s, 3s. Okay, 2.5. Yeah, that's great. I love that. Maria, thank you for your kind words. I really appreciate that. Let's get straight into this then, because I know exactly where to pitch things. And given that we're roughly between 1 and 3, that's great. I want to give you a gift straight off the bat as well. If you would like to make more profitability, there's a report I've written here. It'll take you 10, 15 minutes to go through, and you can have it with my compliments. Just scan that one. You don't even need to give me your email address or anything. You can just scan that and download it. I don't have time to go through all of this in this session, but I think this will be super helpful. I've had people go through this report and tell me they've made thousands of dollars off of implementing things that are in there straight away. So yeah, feel free to scan that one and take that one straight away. And then let's jump into the content. Much of what I'm going to share with you today it comes from the work of Robert Cialdini and his book Influence and the Psychology of Persuasion. Not all of it. I've drawn some things from other books I read as well, and Predictably Irrational by Dan Ariely, and then just quite a lot of other things. Now, a lot of this stuff has been field tested with myself, with my clients, and we're seeing some really great results when we use some of these laws here. Now, you're going to be able to use these laws in many different ways. I'm going to give you the method and what to do, and your creativity will allow you to use it in your marketing, in your sales conversations, even influencing family and friends. So this whole conversation today is about this, what it takes to get us to say the word yes. How do we get people to say yes more frequently? So he calls it the science of persuasion and influence. Now, these 8 laws, and Selena and Keenan, these are going to be a good, dust off of your memory. The first one we have is the law of reciprocity. I'm going to go through all 8 here, and then we'll break them down in detail afterwards. So number 1 is law of reciprocity. 2 is the law of consistency, social proof, liking, authority, scarcity, contrast, and association. If you haven't written all down right now, don't worry. We're going to go through each one in detail. And if you want to take a screenshot of it, you're more than welcome to as well. So this first one then is the law of reciprocity, is this idea that you feel an obligation to give when you receive. And you probably know this. If you go out with a friend and they shouted you coffee this time, you feel like you want to shout the coffee next time, right? If they shouted dinner, then, you feel a need to, to shout for dinner. If, you help them move house, and pack boxes, they may feel like they need to do something similar in return for you. So it's like a natural thing. We kind of have this need to make it feel equal. And you may have experienced this the other way when, someone's given too much to you and you can't give anything back. It sometimes feels a little bit awkward. So we have this need to kind of really make sure that things are reciprocal. Now, Cialdini in his book, he talks about the idea of at a restaurant, when you get given the bill by a waiter, they typically will give you something like a fortune cookie or a mint at the time of that. And in their study, they were trying to wonder to see, well, does it make a difference to how much tips people get? And so what they found is that when the wait staff gave like 1 mint at the time of giving the bill, their tips rose 3% above like the baseline of not giving any. Then interestingly, if they gave 2 mints at that time, tips rose by 14%, right? Which is crazy. For you think about the price of that mint, it's probably like, 5 cents, 10 cents. And of course, the tips have gone up substantially higher. But what was even more interesting, it wasn't just about what was given, it was also how it was given. If they gave 1 mint and then went to walk away and said, oh, but I really enjoyed, working with you tonight, here's another mint, tips went up to 23%, right? That compliment in there as well. So what the message from this and what we receive from this is like, if we give things in a way that's both personalized and unexpected, it can help people to feel more connected to you and want to give back to you more. Now, Samir, I think you're a really great example of this. I'd love to call you out because we didn't know each other, and you reached out to me and said, hey, Kevin, I can see you doing some great things on your YouTube, but by the way, mate, you can get more results if you just do this. Here's a video or 2. And you gifted videos to me. And so then I feel I want to give back and I want to serve, which is why I'm so happy when you show up to this. Like, hey man, maybe I can finally give something back to you. So I think that's a really great example. And no doubt if you've done that many times to many people, some people say, hey, well, you've been so kind to help me out. Let's work together as well. So I think that would be a good strategy. And I'd love to maybe hear from you on that as well. Like, is that something that you've done and it has ended up with people working with you?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't expecting to speak today, but I don't mind. That was amazing. When I saw your content and everything else, I thought, and I checked out your YouTube. I wish I could do more, in fact, for you, but it's something I get an idea and I'm thinking this idea would be useful for this guy or for this lady, whatever, and I just do it because sometimes I just can't sleep
Yeah.
until I action that, and I get it out of the way, and hopefully it will be useful for someone. I don't do it to get something back, but I just feel
Yeah.
good to try and do that and spread it all out. And now looking back, a few things that I'd done in the past, like local businesses, restaurants, or whatever, they then start recommending me to others.
Yeah.
So sometimes I can trace back all the leads I got to 1 or 2 people, thinking, wow, if he hadn't told me about this guy, I wouldn't have met the other guy who then referred me. So I don't advertise anywhere. I just get referrals. If I advertise, I need a huge team to be able to handle fulfillment. So I
I love
deliberately
it.
don't. Yeah. So thank you for even inspiring to see the hard work that you put in. I'm thinking, oh my goodness, and the interviews that you bring in, they're so valuable. All those people that you bring in, they drop so much huge nuggets. I'm thinking people should be listening to this. They should be watching this. Cut them
Thank you.
up in, shorts and spread them out. Yeah.
Okay. Stop. Like I can't take all the compliment. Stop.
And no, it was amazing. Seriously, because
Uh,
some nuggets need to be shared, and all of us, when we see things good quality on LinkedIn and anywhere else, we should be sharing it.
I love the example of this, and you're giving from your heart because you want to, and that's led to things coming back to you, right? Not because you intended that, because you just been of service and it comes back. And I'm just so glad you're here, and that's just such a wonderful example. I wasn't expecting to give today. So before I move on to the next law, I think it would be great for us to just brainstorm, even just by typing in the chat box. What are some ways that you already may be invoking reciprocity, and what are some other ways that we could start doing? And I'll give you an example. Sometimes it's good, people come and you give them a report or a scorecard or something like that, and it's valuable to them. It helps them, right? You give them, sometimes I give time to people. I'll take time with them because actually, in the same way, Samir, the same mindset, I just want to be of service and help. And then it does come back in referrals or, additional work. And sometimes it doesn't. It's just, you're just giving, but sometimes it does. So what are some of the ways that you are currently invoking reciprocity, and what are some of the ways that maybe we could? So just either, I don't mind typing in the chat box, shout out and speak. I'm quite open to it if anyone wants to unmute and share some ideas, because that will help the whole group. All right, awesome. So email people ideas. Yeah, I think that's that's a really great one. A free mindset primer. Yeah, I think that's beautiful. A free mini course. That's such a great way to invoke reciprocity, isn't it? Because you're not just giving a little bit, you're actually giving a lot there with that course. Yeah, and you answer the DMs. Yeah, I thought of you email. Yeah, actually, that's a really nice touch. That is, back to this personalized and unexpected. Such a wonderful way. Giselle, yeah, definitely giving advice about healthcare, and I know you do a wonderful job on that. And you're going to be saving people significant sums of money when they come to you. Yeah, private feedback. Yeah, instead of negative public review. Yeah, so easy to give a negative public review, but it helps them more if you give them that in private, so they can improve on it. So these are great. So then let's think about then how as we move forward, what additional things can you do to invoke reciprocity? Now, sometimes these aren't always big ways. I was at a networking event and we were having food there, and you're queuing up, you're getting plates for the buffet, and just as simple as the person next to me saying, "Oh, here you go, here's your plate and cutlery," and then letting them go in front is a small thing of reciprocity, but then that starts off a conversation. Like it's just a small thing. So it doesn't even have to be a big thing. So what are some of the small things that we can do? Yeah, always generous with support, advice, and genuine compliments. Maria, yes, I know that about you, and that's beautiful. I really love that. Okay, that's law of reciprocity then. Let's move into then the law of consistency. So the idea that we are looking for and asking for small commitments. And once we ask for a small commitment, we can then get a bigger commitment and a bigger commitment. My favorite example of this, I was in Queenstown, a little village called Arrowtown, so in New Zealand. And I was walking down the street and I saw this shop here, and there was a lady out the front with a tray, and she said to me, "Do you like fudge?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." "Would you like to try some fudge?" "Oh, sure." "Would you like to come to the shop and try some more?" "Oh, sure." "Would you like to buy some fudge?" And then I walk out $30 or $40 worth of fudge later, like I wasn't expecting. She invoked this very well, because once I said, yes, I like it, I wasn't going to say no to tasting it. And I wasn't going to say no to tasting more. And then I'm in the awkward situation, like I've tasted this and now I'm going to say, no, I don't want to buy any. No, it would have felt too awkward. So these small commitments can build up and really help. I was working with some gym owners, and they had a similar thing that they were doing reasonably well there. So they would have someone come in, and as they come in, they would look to just get a yes on the first thing. So if it was raining outside or if it was sunny, they would say, "Oh, really hot today, isn't it?" Or "really wet today." And of course, the person would go, "Oh, yes," And then they would say, if they were new, "Would you like a tour of the gym?" Of course, well, yes, they'd like a tour. And then, "Would you like to have a complimentary pass for 5 days? Or would you like to come and join our challenge for 5 days?" Yes. And then, of course, on the back end of that is then like, "Hey, would you like to sign up? Would you like to join our program?" And of course, they would get a higher conversion than that. Now, imagine if that person walked in the door and the first thing said, "Hey, would you like to sign up?" Well, it doesn't quite work so well, right? It kind of thuds a little bit. So these small commitments, bit by bit, can build up to bigger commitments. And in the book, Cialdini uses another example. He speaks about a village, and they had two villages next to each other, and they asked them to put up a sign on their lawn saying, "This is a safe driving village, slow down," something of that nature. Now, what they found is they had one village managed to get 5 times as many people to do that as the other village. And the reason why that village was more likely to do it is because 10 days earlier, they went to that village and asked them if they would put a small sticker in their window saying we're a safe driving village. So because they'd done the small act of putting it in their window, then they were more likely to put the big sign on their lawn. They want to be consistent with the things that they'd said before. So I wonder for you, what are some ways that we can get people to, invoke that consistency? Now, the important thing with this is if it's voluntary, active, and public, that really helps. Now, a good example is I will go to, say, the physio or the chiropractor, and they'll try to, they will book the next appointment. And what they found is that if they get the customer to write down the appointment date and time themselves, they're 18% more likely to show up than if the receptionist wrote it down. Right. So if you can get your customers to actually, do the writing, put the thing in their calendar, they are more likely to, commit to it and do it. So the law of consistency there. So I wonder for you then, what are some ways that we can be asking for smaller commitments from your clients or your prospects and to build up? So do you have any examples of how you might be doing this already, or any ideas come to you about how you can invoke this in your business? Let's hear some things, either unmute or punch into the chat. Yeah, hey, look, I think that's Selena, a really great idea. So if you think about the social posts, and getting people to come and join a small thing. Now, this could be an example of the law of consistency, right? To a certain extent, because my team member maybe messaged you in LinkedIn or on one of the other channels, and she would have said something like, "Hey, would you like to, join a group of us? We're going to talk through about how you can boost your leads." Oh, yes, that sounds interesting. Can I have more details? Okay, great. Well, here are the details. Here's the event. Would you like to come and join the event? Yes, I'm here on the event. Right now, that's consistency. Because if you said no to that first thing, well, you're not going to want to come to a presentation. But if you said, yes, I would like to get more leads, then great, you're more likely to. So we ask for a small commitment there. Yes, I'm interested. Yes, I'll come to the presentation. Now, chances are in this journey at some point, and not now or maybe in the future, I may have something else I can offer you that would be of value. And you may say, oh, yes, Kevin, I'd like that. And that might be a small thing. And then I later may offer you a bigger thing. And then, so of course, because you have those small commitments consistently, like we can build this consistency together. So I think that's great. Writing down the appointment is a good one in healthcare for sure. Okay, so this one seems to be, so all we're looking for is how we can ask people for small commitments. So let's invite them to small things. If they want to come along and, it's, here's a trick, right? I may say, as a coach or an advisor, I may say to people, hey, you don't really know me yet, but come along and have a meeting with me and I'm really going to help you. That may feel like a big commitment for people because like, oh, if I do that, he's likely to want to sell me or something else. So, but if I build that consistency to begin with and invite you to, an online thing that I'm doing or, to get my ebook or my report, these are small commitments. And then of course, then at some point we build the trust and then people feel more likely they may want to connect with us. So from that perspective, then they may want to come to that meeting or that presentation or that event. So just looking for smaller things first.
Basically, I mean, from looking at the online version of what you just said, going to that fudge shop, do you like fudges, and how she got you to basically exit the place with a purchase. In the same way, when we build funnels online, rather than bombarding someone with so much on a website, you've got a simple website similar to what you have, either giving you a report of some sort or some ebook. And then that is basically kind of tasting the water. It's not costing me anything. I'm just giving you my email for an exchange of this. Or what you've been doing, basically how I discovered you is on LinkedIn, you're always throwing in some nuggets. So you're building that rapport. So then as I warm up to you and liking what you do, and basically I started to, and let me try and do something for this guy, or maybe he could do something for me. So it works both ways, basically. So I think, if you look at it from an example of an online presence, it's easier to come up with the examples as well. Or sampling. Starbucks gives you little tiny things outside, which is, you do that. And then after a few times, you're going to want to try it, basically. Yeah. So that's an proactive way.
Samir, thank you. Very well articulated. And that's a good explanation of that as well. And David, yes, I think educating people on your product, giving them free information or education, and that's a good way to look at consistency. Because if someone's going to consume a blog post of yours, or they're going to come along to an educational seminar you do, then they're more likely to go ahead and buy the product. So I love that. Really great examples. So let's move on then to the law of consensus. What we call social proof. So people look to the actions of others to decide their own actions, particularly in times of uncertainty. So if we're not sure what to do, we look at, well, what are other people doing? Now, I was on a business trip to Adelaide. I didn't know the city. I had to go out and get dinner in the evening. And I walked past this restaurant, and the food on the menu actually looked great. I thought it sounded awesome, but there was, no one in the restaurant. And then I looked at the place next door, and menu wasn't as good, but it was absolutely packed. Which of those two restaurants did I go in?
The one that's
the packed one. And why? Why would I go in the packed one? The menu in the other one looks good.
We call this the sheep factor in sales. So go ahead.
That's right. You got to assume the food's better because everyone else is eating it.
Well, that's right. You presume everyone else is in there, so it must be the right place to go. And isn't that interesting? So if we can point to that and help people see how others are engaging with us or others are liking us, then of course it makes people more likely to want to work with it, work with us and be with us. Now, chances are that first restaurant, which was empty, may have been better, but we presume it's not because actually no one else is eating here, so they must know something that we don't. Now, how do we do this in our business then? I think a very good way of social proof is getting recommendations, right? So getting other people to say things, nice about you is wonderful. Now you can do that, through written ones. You can get videos. I've had, people write actual letters for me. Google reviews, can often be a good one to do. Now, if you've been featured in publications, like these organizations, then put them on your website. That association of those logos. So either you've been featured in them or you work with them. So like on my website, just below the top of the fold there, you can see like here are organizations I work with, and it will show people like Amazon and Nike and Walmart and BCG, because I work with executives in those organizations. Now that's an element of social proof. It's like, hey, well, if those leaders have worked with him, well, maybe it's relevant for me. So if we can put logos up, then that's also a really great way of having social proof. The other way of social proof is if you're connected with anyone who's, well known or an influencer. So for me, when I run my podcast, I get to do interviews with some people who are very well known. They're either famous, authors, or they've had success in business. And now that's kind of an element of social proof, because I'm pictured with them. Then people make some level of assumption, like, there must be, a connection there. Right. I mean, the reality is in many cases, these guys are looking to promote their book or their thing. And I have a platform of people, I can share it with. So they're just like a match. But it then doesn't hurt later for me to then go and say, hey, well, I've had, I've worked with this guy, Jim Penman, because he's got $500 million business. And this guy, Kevin Harrington, who's a shark and, on Shark Tank, and this guy and this lady. And so it helps from a social proof perspective as well. Now, how do we also use this in our business? I stayed in a hotel and they had a sign in the room. Normally they have the sign which says, hey, we're eco-friendly, reuse your towel. But what this hotel did is they put a sign there saying 75% of people staying in this room reused their towel. And that actually got 35% more people to reuse their towel, right? So it saved them a fortune on the laundry, saved the environment. But the interesting thing about that is that they pointed to what similar people were doing. The people who stay in this room. So these people are similar and like you. When we've lived in different countries, and when I lived in the Netherlands, we arrived there and they didn't know our health status or vaccination status of our children. So they sent us a letter in the post, and the letter said, like, are you up to date with your vaccinations? 99% of people in the Netherlands have vaccinated their children at this age, right? So they were pointing to other people to say, hey, look, everyone else is doing this. Like, you should really do this. So putting statistics and data on things and other people similar to you can be a very good way. So I'd love to hear from you all right now. Then, what are some ways that you're currently using social proof? What are some additional ways you can start using social proof from today?
I call this the sheep factor in sales. So we tend to gravitate to doing what others are doing. So that is the social proof. So the sheep factor, for example, in a restaurant, clients, what I would say to them is, if people come in and they want to sit and eat, put them closer to the windows where people can see them. Because when people see them, if you put them at the back, they're empty.
That's right.
The restaurant will look empty. It could be like, full of tables at the back. No, priorities, you put them. In fact, shut the others with a shutter, like a temporary removable shutter, so that the place looks a little bit smaller when it's quiet. And then as it gets busy, you can open it up, because people tend to see that as, oh, something going on in there. Let me go. That's, again, the sheep factor.
Yeah, I love it. And that's a really great example, because it's a good visual thing. You put people right at the front. And if you have anyone famous coming to your restaurant or well-known, get pictures with them, stick that up on the wall. That will help as well. That's a very good social proof. Keenan, you got plenty of Google, LinkedIn reviews, but you like a billboard in the desert. Okay. That's we probably need to do something about that, don't we? We need to get this billboard on a main highway for you. David, your challenge with new technology is that everyone wants to be the first, but no one wants to be the first. Yeah. There was a CEO I used to work with, and he always used to say, we want to be leading edge, not bleeding edge, right? I guess if you're very first, then you're the one taking all the arrows and the pain. So I think that's important. I think, posting, screenshots of people signing up. I think that's a real great example of social proof. And I'll show you some more examples of that in a minute on what hotels do as well. I use the testimonials everywhere, social proof, but we can also use success stories, case studies. Yeah, case studies are great. Case studies are like social proof on steroids, aren't they? Because you talking people through, here's the problem they had, which probably problem you're having, and here's the result that we got. I love that. Numbers and facts are also a good social proof about results. That's so true. Yeah, definitely collect reviews. Yeah, Giselle, it makes a big difference. And yes, and definitely it's, Belinda, I think it's a really great idea. Have some video testimonials in your webinar. And what I think you could probably do as well is, like that case study example, some before and after. So the difference you make to people's voices. Here's what they sounded like to begin with, and here's what they sound like now. That's a real good social proof as well, particularly if then that person says, hey, I've really enjoyed the experience and I'm so grateful. Hey, that's a really great one. Posting about gifts you receive from clients. That is a real great example of social proof, isn't it? Because it's not only do these clients like you, they liked you enough to actually go out their way to send you a gift. Such an awesome example. Hey, we've got some really great examples of social proof. So let's leverage all of those and do that more. Alrighty, let's go in then to the next law, which is the law of liking. So people prefer to say yes to those that they like. Okay, and this is people that are, if they feel like they're similar to you, if they've complimented you, or they cooperate in some way. I often share, I'll save that example. I'll share that example in a minute. In the book, Cialdini talks about the idea of, he was at university and he had groups negotiating with each other. And the first group, he says to them, hey, you need to go in there, don't have any chit chat, don't get to know each other, just get down, get the job done, you get the negotiation done. And in that group, they only had a 55% successful outcome in the negotiation. For the second group, he says to them, hey, before you go in there, before you can actually start the negotiation process, you have to chat long enough to find a similarity, find something you have in comparison, like something that you have similar to each other. And in that group, they actually found they had a 90% success rate on the negotiation that was worth 18% more to both parties. Right? So it's taking time to know someone, build that rapport, get that liking and that connection can be really essential in the process. Now, there are many things that can help increase the liking. I want to share this one with you. So we have different representational systems, different ways that we kind of experience the world. Some people, when you listen to them talk, they'll be using words like, hey, look at this, I want to see the bigger picture. Can you imagine what it would look like? I want to see this clearly. They're using visual words. Now, interestingly, if we use visual words back with them, they feel more alike. On a subconscious level, they really kind of get that you see eye to eye, right? There's that connection. Now, if you listen to people, sometimes you'll hear them say things like, hey, does that resonate with you? Can you hear what I'm saying? Let's sound this out. And if you use those words to them, they're going to feel more connected. And same, we can go through this. So Some people are more about kinesthetic. It's about how they feel. How does this feel? Can you grasp this? Give me something solid. Let's connect. Let's see if this fits. And so they're talking more about the language of feeling. And then you get this group of people who are a little bit more digital. So probably think of it like accountants, lawyers. We're logical, we're analytical. Things need to make sense. I need a step-by-step process, a procedure. Things need to be logical. Now, in all of these cases, we have a favored representational system ourselves. There's one of these that we use more frequently than others. And typically, if we're not aware of this, we will just speak to people from that perspective. Now, me naturally being trained as an accountant is very straightforward for me to talk about logic and thought, process, procedure. But if someone's about how things look or about how they feel, I'm going to disconnect with them. They're not going to feel that match. They're not going to feel this subconscious liking. So what's very important in these communication is if we can hear people's words and use their words back to them, it will help increase the liking. I'm going to give you an example of this. I was, many years ago, I was looking to hire a coach. And this coach said to me, "Hey, Kevin, so what do you want to do?" I was working in corporate at the time. And he said, I said to him, "Hey, well, I've now got a team, so I want to be a better leader. I want to run my first marathon. And, I've been single for a long time, so I want to get into a relationship." And when it comes to summarizing up the process, and he said, "Hey, Kevin, so when we work together, I can help you find your bliss." And I was like, I mean, I don't know what bliss is. Like, maybe I needed my bliss. Maybe that's what I really needed. But it clunked for me because that wasn't what I said. That wasn't what I was asking for. I interviewed with another guy about him being my coach. And at the end of the thing, he said exactly what I said. He said, "Hey, Kevin, so when we work together, you're going to become a more effective leader for your team. You're going to run your first marathon and you're going to find that, the partner that you want." I was like, yes, like this guy really gets me. Right? All he did is repeat back my words. So I wonder how much you can leverage this. Are you hearing the words that other people are saying and are you feeding them back to them? And if not, could you start to do that? How much would that help increase the liking? So before we jump on to the next law, let's check in on this then. What are some things that you can do in terms of liking? What things can you add into your process? How are you going to help find similarities? How can you compliment people genuinely? How can you be more cooperative with people? So what are some of the things that we can begin to do or some of the things that you're already doing?
I think one of the things from my angle is that it's why I like face-to-face relationships rather than just this little part here. This forum diminishes your capability to connect a lot, but because it's also an auditory medium, you need to be able to make sure that you are matching the right words.
Yes. Yeah, I love that, Tim. It's so true. And actually, it can be much easier to create that liking in a physical environment, can it? Because you have the ability to physically connect as well. So yeah, I love that example. I think you make a really valid point there as well around, and it's not just around the words. It could also be the tone of voice and how you do it. You probably, let me just share this down. You probably had this experience. I don't know if you've ever been in in an energy, you're really upbeat and excited about something, and you go and tell someone, and they're just like Debbie Downer and not interested. Like, have you ever had that experience? You just feel that disconnect, or you've been maybe sleeping, and you're just waking up, and someone comes in and they're super excited, and it clunks, right? Because the two, they're not matched. Like in that moment, there's not a liking because you're not on the same level of energy. So sometimes this rapport and this liking comes down to meeting people where they are. So if you get on a call or physically, you're meeting with them and they're the kind of person who's upbeat and talkative, you're going to feel more liking and more connected with each other if you're upbeat and talkative. Or if they're a little bit slower, you kind of slow your pace down and be a little bit slower with them as well. That can also make a big difference to the liking. Now, this stuff happens on a more of a subconscious level. I think if you know this, if you out with a friend, who you do have natural liking with and rapport with, if you ever notice, maybe when you're walking along the street, you probably find that your feet end up in unison and you end up, walking, in unison. Or I don't know if you've ever done it whereby you make a gesture like, you rub your head or scratch your nose, and then the person opposite you also does the same thing. Now that's a sign that they're also in that rapport with you as well. So, okay. Law of liking. Yeah, Maria, it is hilarious how well it works to simply repeat someone's exact words. I feel understood. If someone uses back my words, I feel completely understood and heard. So yeah, don't underestimate this one. This is like a really powerful approach in your sales and selling. And have a pen and paper there. Write down the words that they're saying and feed them back to them. It makes a major difference to people feeling understood and liked. Okay, cool. Then let's move on to the next one. The law of authority. So people will follow the lead of credible, knowledgeable experts. And we have experts on this call. Belinda, you have a doctorate in what you do. You're a credible, knowledgeable expert. Maria, I know you've written, a book, and I've read the book, and, it's a really value-packed thing. And so, of course, that makes you an expert as well. Now, in the book, Cialdini talks about the idea of physiotherapists again. And he found out that if they had their certificates displayed on the wall and their qualifications, their patients were more likely to follow through with the exercises they gave them than if they didn't have them on the wall. So if we can do anything to demonstrate our credibility or our skills, it really helps. Has anyone watched the movie Catch Me If You Can? Anyone seen that movie? Oh, you should watch it. It's a great movie. So Leonardo DiCaprio in there, he's playing this guy, Frank Abagnale. Now, Frank Abagnale, he was a scammer, right? But basically what he did, he managed to fly all across the US because he managed to go and get himself a pilot's uniform, right? So he went to the shop, got a pilot's uniform, right? And because he had a pilot's uniform, then they put him on the payroll. And because he had a pilot's uniform, he showed up to the airport, they let him fly on the flights for free, right? And now in the movie, additionally, I think the guy, he becomes a doctor as well, right? And, he shows up, he has on the white coat and the stethoscope, and people follow him and listen to him. In real life, I think he also managed to teach a university course. I don't know how he scammed his way into being a university lecturer, but he did. And the FBI who tracked him and chased him down, they said, look, out of everything, that's the one thing we don't understand. We don't understand how you were able to teach a university course. And he said, it was easy. All I ever had to do was read one chapter ahead of the class. And I was like, isn't that interesting? We sometimes think we're not experts, but sometimes being the expert is being that one chapter ahead of everyone else, right? So we can diminish our skills and our experience and not think it's good enough. But actually, if you're a chapter ahead of everyone else, then you are. Now, the other reason I leave this picture of a pilot up here, because they did another study where they had a man standing next to a parking meter, asking people if they could break change, to pay for the parking meter. What they found, that same man stood there in plain casual clothes, and then he stood there later in a pilot's uniform. More people were willing to help him break change when he was in a pilot's uniform, right? So even what you wear and your physical appearance can actually, lead people to make a judgment about whether you are the credible and knowledgeable expert. So is there anything you need to change in your environment to demonstrate you're the expert, or anything you need to change in your physical appearance that could also help as well? Now, this authority also comes across, it doesn't matter if someone else is saying it about you, right? So if someone else talks about your authority, even if they're on your team, it can help. So he had a group of real estate agents, and the receptionist. And what he found is when someone would call up, if the receptionist gave details about, the real estate agent's authority, they would actually get a 20% increase in appointments. So as an example, the receptionist would say, oh, you want to buy a property. Kevin has worked in this area for 20 years. He sold 5,000 properties. Let me put you through to Kevin. That got a 20% increase in appointments. Or, hey, meet Sarah. Sarah has, you want to rent a place. Sarah has been here for 15 years and she has rented over 2,000 properties. Let me put you through to Sarah. So even if someone in your team is talking about your authority, it has an impact. So what are some of the ways then that you're already demonstrating your authority, or what are some ways that you can start to use more to demonstrate your authority? Let's have some shares on that one.
Can I make a couple of observations on this one? Because
please do.
You teach this as well. Say, for example, I do have doctor up in front of my name. One of the things that I do find is that after a while, if people are always calling me Dr. Tim, that feels a little bit uncomfortable, because I think that it takes away from that connection to just being the same as people. So you've got liking and connecting at the same level, and then you've got you've also got having your authority. So in some ways it detracts. So at a certain point, you've got to be able to then bring yourself back down to the level and meet at the same level that you were talking about before of connecting. So as an example, when I used to facilitate groups, If I was going down to what I call the pointy end, which is down near Circular Quay, back in the day when all merchant bankers wore ties and all of that kind of stuff, I would put on a tie to be in that situation. But when I was working with general audiences that perhaps wouldn't wear ties, I didn't want to position myself in a tie, even though it gave me authority, because it removed me a little bit too much from the audience. I wanted to be at a liking level where I could influence them more, because they still knew about my qualifications and all that kind of stuff, but I wanted also a connection with them. So you got to have that level of understanding of how if you position yourself too high away from it, yes, you are the authority, but it can actually take you away from connection as well.
Yeah, that's a really important point, and thank you for making it. We've had that scenario where my daughter's needed surgery, and so we went in to see the surgeon. Now, we've seen many surgeons. There's this one surgeon who he was very skilled. He was the best at what he did. He would never greet you. He would never want connection, right? But you would do what that guy asked you to do because you knew like this was the right thing to do. So I would follow his advice on my daughter for that reason. Now we've got another surgeon since we've moved countries, and he's equally as talented, but he does build that connection. He does build that rapport, and actually we feel even more comfortable with him. What you reminded me of one of the studies. I think they for doctors, they were able to determine, and this would be a US based study, they were able to determine how likely a doctor was to get sued by a patient or not. And what it came down to was in that original conversation, were they connecting? Did they feel connected? If they felt connected to that doctor, if something went wrong, they were less likely to sue them. But if that doctor hadn't built that rapport and that relationship and something went wrong, then they were. All right, so Dr. Tim, that's a very relevant point. We can find the balance. People do that very well. I had the privilege of interviewing, a former admiral of the U.S. Navy. So this is a guy who served under presidents and had a lot of responsibility, for whole squadrons of aircraft. Now he has authority. He still carries that authority. You know who he is, but he also builds the connection. And so I think your point is right. Even though you know that there's that seniority and that experience there, and you would trust his leadership, on the other hand, you still feel as though he was open enough that you can speak to him. So I think, finding that balance is really key. Another
thing is that so there's a lot of crossover in these things as to where they work. So social proof, as an example, I always put best-selling author in my thing because it's also, it both gives authority and it also gives social proof, because to get bestseller, you have to have had people buying it. So therefore there's the social proof and the authority. So you can actually tick boxes very, very quickly. So, and so in the way that you do that, when you're using it verbally rather than in your written messages and so forth, you also need to make sure that you don't come across as, excuse me for saying it in this thing, but a pious wanker. In being able to trump yourself up too high in the way that you're doing it. So your energy in being able to say whatever that thing is needs to be down while you're talking about yourself. And then when you're talking about the other person, like all of the things you can do for them and connect to them and so forth, bring your energy up a little bit, because that then is all about them as opposed to being all about you.
Yeah, I love it. So true. So true. And we find that balance, and we can help people in that way. And I think it all comes down to your intention as well, doesn't it? Because if you're coming from a place of just trying to say how great you are, you're not really focused on them. But if you are focused on them and tell them these things because actually it's going to help them, then I think they'll feel the difference in there. So I love it. Great share. Let's jump on to the next one then. Let's jump on to the law of scarcity. So this is the idea that people want more of what they can have less of. Now, one of my favorite examples of this is the idea of the Concorde. Okay, so I can't even remember which year it was, probably good 15 years ago now, maybe longer. Concorde used to run twice daily flights between New York and London. And then they announced that they were retiring the fleet, and sales for that Concorde went through the roof. Like, people just didn't want to miss out on having the experience of flying on the Concorde. Okay, so they got booked out, pretty quickly because they knew that opportunity was going to be gone. Now, for those of you that have websites, you'll see things like this. eBay are really great at doing this. There's only 2 minutes left on this product or this offer, so it's going to run out. I've definitely purchased things because of that. I remember a coaching training, there was a deadline coming up for. It's like, hey, if you want in, it closes in 10 days. It closes in 5 days. It closes in 2 days. It closes in 1 day. And I was like, oh, all right, I'll get it. And now what I didn't realize is that they had a launch every quarter. So I wasn't ready for it for another quarter, probably even 6 months. I probably could have waited, but actually the fact that there was a timer on it actually it got me across the line. So having scarcity around something can be very helpful. Now, scarcity on the amount of time is one thing, but you can also have scarcity on the number of products. There's only one of these remaining or only two of these remaining. Okay, so how many of these do we have left in stock can be another good way. Booking websites do this very well. So I did the screenshot back when, when I think most of the city was still closed because of COVID and stuff, I think. But even on the screenshot, there was hardly anyone staying in the city, but, booking.com told me there's only 6 rooms left on our site, right? Only on our site. Now, if I went to the actual hotel, there's probably the whole place is probably empty, but telling you how many are remaining on the site. So it'd be a perception thing. I had a client, she was a naturopath. She was a new naturopath, so she literally had no clients. She was brand new. And the problem is you have your booking link up there and say, hey, you can book a time in. Well, if someone goes there and sees that every appointment every day is available, again, it's like the empty restaurant. It's probably not a good sign. So even in things like your booking, the booking link in the booking system, you can set it up to show only, say, 3 appointments per day or 4 appointments per day or something like that. Now, it gives a perception of scarcity that, the other appointments are booked or not available. Right. So sometimes it's about managing the perception. Now, I never want to lie. I definitely wouldn't encourage lying in any of these cases. But if there's a genuine scarcity around things, then we should do. Now, we need to be authentic in this because I see people write, hey, you've got to book in because, there's not going to be enough space on the Zoom link. Right. Well, the reality is in most cases, if you get thousands and thousands of people, you're just going to pay the extra $20 or $50 to let all those people in anyway. Right. So I think you need to be genuine on these things with the scarcity. I have another colleague I work very closely with, and she used scarcity very well. She sells bikinis and swimmers, and she makes them out of recycled materials. So it's an amazing product. It's really great. And she says, hey, we've only got X number of these in this pattern. And of course, it sells out, and then there's even more people wanting it. And so my question to her was, hey, well, are you just going to go and print some more and give them to her? She said, well, no, I can't do that, right? Because if I do that, then people won't trust my scarcity in the future. I can offer them an alternative pattern, a new pattern, but I said there was only a limited number of these, so I need to stick to that. So I think if we're going to have scarcity, it needs to be genuine. We need to stick to that. Otherwise, people will just lose faith and lose trust. So what are some of the ways then that you can begin to demonstrate scarcity around your product or your service? What are some of the things that you can put in place? Let's hear some things in the chat box. What are you already doing, or what else could you do? Yeah, early bird sell. I think that's great. That's a really great example, Keenan. People can get a better price if they buy sooner. Limited spots. And for people who are doing like coaching, consulting, that's true. There's only so many hours in the day that we can be available. Scarcity also equals exclusivity. Yeah, I think that's true. So I have a mastermind event coming up here in Port Stephens, and people are going to physically come together, and not just anyone can pay the money and come to that. We need to go through and assess, are they going to be a fit for the group? Is it, are they the right size? Are they going to bring the good energy to the group? So actually scarcity could be the exclusivity. A really great example. Lisa, oh, sorry, someone's speaking. Yes, Samir, carry on.
Yeah, scarcity is pretty good, especially if you've got bookings. For example, you want to know that the most committed ones, they may not be able to afford your event, for example. But if you say 20 early bird and then the next 50 will pay this much, the next 100 will pay this much, then it's an incentive for them to jump in early, show commitment. It works for restaurants as well. When they're launching, I always encourage them. We design it so that the first 50 customers that scan the QR code to claim the one-time coupon, they get 50% off. The next 50 will get 25. The next 100 will get 15%. And that way you already subscribed. So pre-selling everything in advance, it does help for that.
Perfect. I love that example. Thank you so much. That's wonderful. And Lisa, offering events with a small number of places, intimate and more personal attention. Yes, that's definitely scarcity and the exclusivity piece as well. And bonus for the first 10 people. I think that's good. Yeah, cool. And I like that as well, actually, because that's interesting. That's a good way of having scarcity as well. If you want to work with me one-on-one, it's going to cost, significantly more, but hey, I've also got this group, and I think that's a scarcity as well. I've only got a certain number of spaces for that. Okay, great. I think scarcity is one that we can really use more of then. So definitely on time, availability, and dollars. Let's talk about the law of contrast. So people like to decide in comparison to what was shown immediately before, right? So if you go to the cinema, for example, you'll often see, 3 options of popcorn. Normally this large popcorn is only like 10 cents more or something like that. You get something significantly bigger and it seems like a much, much better value. You see this happen on websites, there's like a good, better, or a best option. Now, when I worked with Tony Robbins in his coaching team, we used to present 3 options for people, okay, in terms of like a coaching package. They could have like the 3-month option, the 6-month option, or the 12-month option. What do you think most people picked when presented that way, 3, 6, or 12 months? Middle option. So Maria, you're right, the middle option. Most people went for the 6-month. Some bought 12, some bought 3. So what we did is we got rid of the 3-month option, and we then offered a 6-month option, 12-month option, and an 18-month option. What did most people buy? Yeah, most people bought middle, the 12. So the first purchase value over doubled. Right now, that was great because we couldn't always rely on the coaches to successfully convert someone from 6 months into another 6 months. But if we got the 12-month sale up front, then it was great. Now, incidentally, we had quite a lot of people still buy the 18-month because a lot of people still want to buy, the best option that's available to them. So people decide in comparison to something else. So it's really important we have that that contrast frame. And so here's an example as well. This car here is a $3.2 million car, right? It's a Mercedes. Now, if you go into a Mercedes dealership and there's a $3.2 million car, or then there's a car of $150,000, does a $150,000 car seem more reasonable? Like it certainly does, right? Going back to Tony Robbins' example on this, then he's one of the things that he also does. Whilst I spoke about the 3 options for the coaching, he stands on stage and he says through his whole event, "Hey, it costs $1 million a year to work with me, plus a percentage of your business, plus I've got a long wait list. $1 million, $1 million, $1 million." So your brain gets anchored to $1 million. So when he comes and says, "Hey, you can have a coaching contract with me, and my team members, and to work with my team, it's 15 or 20,000." Well, 15 or 20,000 seems very good in comparison to the $1 million, right? It's with my team, they're trained, etc. If he says, "Hey, I have a platinum program, it's $100,000 a year," again, also good in comparison to the $1 million. Now, if he didn't have that $1 million there, and he says, "Hey, spend $100,000 with me," that might seem like a high price point because then people are comparing that to other things externally. So it's important that we anchor people and give them a comparison that we want to have. Now, I've got a ninja level trick here, and I pray every time that my wife and my daughters never hear this. But if you want your partner to take you to a restaurant, a new restaurant, flashy place, here's what you need to say to them first. You need to go to them and say, "Will you take me on a trip to Paris?" Now, the chances are they're probably going to say like no. And they say, "Oh, all right, well, then can you take me to the restaurant, down the road?" They're more likely to say yes to that because it seems very reasonable in comparison to the trip to Paris. Okay, so you can go and try that one on and see what happens. People are just more likely to respond to that. Now, if you went to your partner and said to them immediately, "Hey, can you take me to this fancy restaurant down the road?" They might, immediately think no, and then they might be more inclined to take you to the less fancy restaurant. But if you ask for something bigger to begin with, it can help. So this law of contrast, then, I think the important thing is that we help people decide, and give them an immediate comparison. Now, I'm just seeing the time's crept up on us. I've got maybe another 4 or 5 minutes to go. So if any of you have to drop off, we're at the top of the hour, then I completely understand. But we'll be landing in the next 4 or 5 minutes anyway. So law of contrast, I'd like you to note how you can do this. Belinda, I understand you need to go, and we'll get the recording across to you, and we'll speak soon anyway. So thank you so much. And then law of association. So my question is, what does George Clooney have to do with Nespresso, right? What does this guy have to do with Nespresso? I mean, the thing is that they are playing on the fact that, hey, people who like George Clooney are now likely to go and buy Nespresso coffee because of that association. Now, we don't all have the budget to go and pay a movie star to work with us in our business, but who can we be associated with? Are there any influencers in your area, your industry, that you can be associated with? Is there someone, and like in my case, I spoke about the podcast, I get to interview some very well-known people who are having success, and, they, that association can be helpful for me to say, hey, I've worked with this guy, I presented with this guy, I've been on stage with this guy. The association helps then people to feel, that I'm more credible. Do you have any influencers in your industry? Is there anyone you work with, that you can put pictures of? Is there anyone that you can be associated with? Now, it doesn't have to be just people. It could be association with, with brands that you work with. It could be associations with, actual organizations you're certified by. So I am trained as a chartered global management accountant. Now, for some people, if I, tell them I have that association, I'm a fellow of that organization, hey, that association may work very well because they're like, oh, okay, he has that experience, he has that authority. So are there associations that you're a member of or a body that you're a member of as well that you can talk about? So from the association perspective, is there any other ideas, anything else that you can do to help?
As seen on, the online, when you've been on publication or your product's been on publications, news release, etc., that's pretty powerful. And also for SEO as well. So you can get backlinks with that.
Yeah, it helps. Yeah, it certainly helps with the SEO. And actually, from an SEO perspective, that's a really good point, because if you've done something with another organization and they've got a higher authority site and they link back to you, then of course Google rewards that positive association. So I think, Samir, that's great. You're taking all of these things and making them digital for me. I think it's good. I'm going to start to use these examples in future. So wonderful. Yeah, association, Lisa, really great example. Successful graduates of your program that have a high profile. I think that's really awesome. Really great example. Co-marketing, co-promoting is definitely a good idea. Yeah, you think about association, a lot of these larger brands do JVs. I think about things like, McDonald's and Monopoly, right? Or I think McDonald's and Lego or something like that. They leverage each other's brands. Talk about Lego. I guess Lego's done very well. They got associated with Star Wars and now they all have like a Star Wars range. They're leveraging each other's association. So we can do that. Okay, that covers the 8. And so out of those, I'd love to hear in the chat box, which one is the one that's the most interesting to you? Which is the one that's going to, the one that you're going to do something on to implement this week?
Well, I'm in the process of almost produce another book or publish another book. This time it's emotional judo on influence, as the case may be. But also what had occurred to me before was to be able to get published authors already in the space, being able to review it and put that review at the beginning of the book, because it's an advertisement for them as well as an association positioning for me in the book, providing that it's favourable, of course. But then I forgot about it. So just seeing the George Clooney things just reminded me that I need to be able to go into that process again.
It's a great example. I had a podcast guest recently and his book, there was very famous people saying nice things about him. So immediately there's that association. You're like, oh, I know that person, and wow, they're saying nice things about him, so it must be great. I love that. Great example. Really great example. Social proof. Felicia, great to see you. Law of authority. Yeah, Keenan giving personalized unexpected gifts. And yeah, Giselle. Yeah, law of liking in your conversion process. That will really help increase conversion. So that's beautiful. And yeah, Selena, you're going to nerd out and optimize everything you can here. So great. I look forward to hearing your examples. Thank you for that. Now, I'm sorry I have run over a little bit. I thought I'd get it done on time, but we are a few minutes behind. I have one more gift I'd like to give to you. So as I mentioned, I really care about this angle from maximizing your profitability. So I have a scorecard that if you wanted to go through it, it'd take a few minutes to go through it and answer a few questions, and it will identify, where you're doing well in terms of maximizing profitability and where we have some opportunity. So if you want to go through that and take that, you're more than welcome to. There's a QR code here. You can just scan that one on the screen. I'll pop it in an email for you afterwards as well, in case you're watching this on your phone. And you can go through that, take that, and it will give you a score out of 36. I think the average we have is around 18 to 20. So it'd be interesting for you to see what your scorecard is there. And then finally, if you are wanting any additional support around helping to grow your leads or increase your conversion in this process, or even help people purchase, for higher prices, then given the fact that you've been on this call with me today, I'm more than happy to spare some time with you. So if you might be interested in doing that, yeah, we can jump on a call and I'll do that with my compliments, and you can just scan the QR code there. It says 100K in 45 minutes, not because that's the price, but my objective on those calls that personally is to find, $100,000 of opportunity for you, in your business. And we do that every time we get on there. There's always a route or a method there. So yeah, if there are any questions, I'm happy to stay around for a little bit longer. Otherwise, yeah, I just want to thank you all for participating and, and being engaged today. It makes these sessions so much better when people engage like you have. So thank you all so much. But yeah, feel free to unmute or type questions in the chat box. Otherwise, it's a pleasure to have you here today.
Thanks, Kevin. Good one.
Thank you. Thank you for your participation. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, you.
Thanks, guys. Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Same here.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Take care. Nice to meet
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Thanks, Selena.
Thank you so much. Good to see you.
It was so good to see
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah, so good to see you as well. And thank you. I see you. You did a Google review for me recently as well. So I really appreciate that.
My pleasure. Take
Yeah,
care,
that's
mate.
good.
See you next time.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye.